Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of BCT with your host Olivia. So today's fact is that I love musicals, and my top 3 are definitely Hamilton, Dear Evan Hansen and Waitress. So today I am joined by Laura Broome, who is an active member of Baglan Community Church and is always happy to help, especially in the children's ministry. Hi Laura.
Hi Olivia.
You okay?
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah,
You okay?
good. Yeah, I'm really good. So tell me a little bit about yourself, maybe your likes, your family, and what you do for a living.
Okay, so there's myself, my husband Phil, and Oliver, who's 9, and we've got another little one on the way in June.
Very exciting.
That's exciting. Little girl come in.
Oh.
In terms of my likes and things, I love being outside.
Yeah.
I love being by the ocean. Doesn't matter where I am, as long as I'm by the sea, then I'm happy. I love just nature, gardening, things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know anything at all about art, but much to my son's dismay, if I see an art gallery, I'm in there.
Really?
Doesn't matter where I am. Could be 5 galleries in a row. I have to go in there and I have to see it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know why, but that's what I love to do.
Oh, cool. I think art is just so amazing because they're all different. They're different paintings and yeah, it's incredible.
Amazing.
So what about then growing up and the time before you became a Christian? Like, what did that look like?
Okay, so up until probably about 14 years old, there was 4 of us at home. So my mother, father, myself, and my younger sister.
Yeah.
It wasn't we didn't grow up in a Christian household. I think we believed in God and heaven, but it didn't go any further than that.
Yeah.
It was quite a volatile home to grow up in. So it didn't always feel like a safe space. So I kind of always would seek that kind of growing up. So I had that up until I was 18, 19, and then I moved away. So I went up to Newcastle. I went to university up there. It didn't really matter what course I was doing at that point. I just wanted to kind of get away from that kind of environment.
Yeah.
And I thought, going up there, I thought I could kind of reinvent myself, get away from all my problems and just forget everything. But of course, you kind of you take your baggage with you, don't you? You carry it all up there. So it wasn't the kind of happy kind of move that I was initially anticipating.
Yeah.
I felt very alone, really. I would kind of really struggle to leave my house or leave my bedroom. I could go out with my friends, if there was alcohol involved, then it lowers your inhibitions, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I just felt very alone, like there was a big gap and I didn't really know how to fill it. And often when you're in that space, you fill it with the wrong things.
Yeah.
But on a positive note, that is where I met Phil, my now husband. So we met up there and became quite serious really quickly, even though neither of us wanted a relationship, but we kind of ended up in one. And that really was the first time I felt safe.
Yeah.
He had a flat that he was living in and I just felt really safe there.
Yeah.
It was a really healthy relationship and it was the first time that I'd had a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Because when you grow up in that kind of conflict, that kind of volatile space, it skews your view of what a healthy relationship is. And that kind of affects your self-worth. It affects, how you see yourself, the kind of behaviours that you demonstrate, the kind of behaviours that you accept from others. It does kind of, it can define who you are.
Yeah.
And then I was in this kind of healthy relationship where if we had a bit of conflict about something, which everybody does, it wouldn't end up in a massive kind of screaming match. And I was like, oh, this is different.
Yeah.
What do you mean you want to talk? Are we not going to have a big row, screaming, smashing things row? But no. So he kind of showed me a different way of being, really, and a different way of seeing myself. Excuse me. So, and the rest is history, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. So I'd love to know then the exact moment when you decided to accept Jesus into your life.
Yeah. So Phil and I didn't go to church. He had grown up in church and then moved away. So it wasn't something that was part of our relationship. And then we had Oliver, and Phil started wanting to come back, and he wanted to kind of raise Oliver in church. And I wasn't entirely thrilled about it. I thought there's better things I could be doing with my Sunday morning. But, I respected that's what he wanted to do. So I agreed, and we came to Baglan. Now, I didn't know a church like Baglan existed. When I thought about church, I thought, the traditional, very quiet, very kind of, repetitive worship. And then I walk into Baglan and there's like a live band. I thought it was a professional band. It blew my mind when I heard that they were actually members of the congregation. And people are raising their hands and closing their eyes, and I didn't understand any of it. And some of the language, I just didn't understand the language, in terms of, remember your dad preaching, if you're a Christian here today, or if you're not a Christian. And I think, well, everybody's in church. They must be Christians. What's he talking about?
Yeah.
And people asking, how long have you been saved? And I think, saved from what? What am I being saved from? I don't know. I didn't realise I needed to be saved. Yeah, wow. And it was just like learning another language and falling into this other planet. But I loved the songs. I loved coming but for the first year or so, it was just me coming to church on a Sunday and then leaving and then getting on with my week.
Yeah.
And then, so about a year or so in, the lovely Julie Wood came up to me and she was like, the women's weekend is coming up. Are you going to come? You have to come. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, I can't go on a church weekend away.
Yeah.
I can't do that. And she was saying it's really relaxed. You'll get to know people. There's no pressure. And then your mum came up and she was like, yeah, you have to come. And in all honesty, I was thinking, I can't think of a reason to say no quick enough. Because I just couldn't imagine going away on a weekend like that. But I said yes, because I couldn't think of a reason to say no, which is so bad, isn't it? So off I go on this weekend, and I was so terrified. I was so scared. I just thought I was going to be tested when I got there on my knowledge of the Bible, and they were all going to see straight through me. And you look at some people in the church and you just think how faithful they are. And I was looking at the women who were there, and I just thought, oh my goodness, I'm not going to be able to relate to them. Not because of anything they were doing or saying, just in terms of how I was feeling.
Yeah.
So I was really, really nervous. And then I remember sitting down for the first Bible study. And I had a Bible that my friend had given me, but it was a Jehovah's Witness, from the Jehovah's Witnesses, because I had studied with them for years because of my friend. So that was the only Bible I had. So that was the one I took.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting down in the room with everybody and kind of almost having this internal giggle to myself. Look at me sitting here having a Bible study. If only my friends could see me now. And then it was as if I got hit by a bus. It was literally just like a lightning bolt out of nowhere that I wasn't expecting. I couldn't even hear what anybody else was saying. I just sat there and I just wanted to throw this Bible in my hand out the window. It was just such an odd moment, and I don't think I spoke for the rest of that session because I was so just floored.
Yeah.
And I didn't fully understand what had happened, but I went back to my room. I prayed like I'd never prayed before because I was always really uncomfortable around prayer.
Yeah.
I didn't really know how to pray, or I didn't really know what God was to me. But I prayed so hard and I cried, and I didn't even tell anybody that it had happened because I don't think I could really define it.
Yeah.
And then a little while after that weekend, your dad was talking about a baptism service.
Yeah.
And he was talking about various ways that people become Christians. Some people it happens gradually, there's no defining moment, and other people it can be like a lightning bolt moment.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, that's what I experienced. So I got baptised and it was wonderful.
Yeah.
It was.
Oh, what an amazing story. Oh my gosh. So now as Christians, we know that God is simply the best forgiver and we should be like God in a way. But Laura, I know this isn't something that has come really easy to you. Could you maybe explain a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I think for me, forgiveness is a complex process. I don't think you become a Christian and then you forgive everything.
Instantly, like
yeah, that's it. I've ticked the box and therefore I now forgive everybody. And I think it is really hard to look beyond pain and distress that you've experienced at the hands of someone else. And you can also forget that you've possibly caused pain and distress to other people as well.
Yeah.
You know, we focus on how we feel and how other people have made us feel. But I think what becoming a Christian did was change how I defined forgiveness. So I think before that, I thought of forgiveness as forgetting. You know, if I forgive you, then I've forgotten what you've done and it doesn't affect me anymore.
Yeah.
But then you kind of, when you think about forgiveness in the sense of what God has forgiven, you know, what Jesus did for us, dying on the cross and the way that he did was really centered in God's forgiveness of us. Because if he didn't forgive us, he wouldn't have done that, would he? He wouldn't have been needed.
Yeah.
But there's still consequences. You can forgive someone without forgetting, but there is a kind of freedom to letting go of the resentment. So for me, that's really what I started focusing on. I started realising that I can forgive without forgetting.
Yeah.
I can forgive without wanting revenge on somebody else. And I can also forgive whilst setting boundaries because it's okay to have consequences. So for me, I ended a relationship with a parent, which is always a very, very complex thing to do anyway. But the difference was this time I was doing it from a place of forgiveness. I wasn't ending the relationship because I wanted to hurt somebody else.
Yeah.
I was doing it because I've forgiven you, but I need to put a boundary up and protect myself and my family. And it just completely and utterly changed how I did it. So I ended the relationship very rationally. I explained why. I said, if I see you, I'll talk to you. But this is where my line, you know, is drawn. And I think I found it easier to kind of sit with that because people do judge you when you've ended a relationship like that. But because I ended it with forgiveness in my heart, not with hatred in my heart, I'm okay with. I'm comfortable to sit in that, and I'm comfortable with my decision. And it's completely changed how I feel about myself as well. Because I think before I had forgiveness, where you are sitting in resentment and you are sitting in anger, you're not a very nice person. You know, it can cause you to be toxic and it can cause anger in you. You know, there was plenty of times where I would get drunk and ring my father at 2:00 in the morning just to scream at him, just to say all the nasty things I could possibly say. What was I? I wasn't achieving anything when I did that. I was just making myself feel rubbish. I don't have any desire whatsoever to hurt him anymore, which is a freedom in that, to let that go. And really, when you think about it, what God's forgiven, it's just there's so much more to it, isn't there? What he's forgiven versus what we will ever forgive of each other. Like I say, it doesn't mean the hurt's gone, but I think it helps you focus on healing from that hurt versus focusing on the anger that it's caused. Yeah.
So before we close then, is there any advice you want to give to anyone who's listening?
I think when it comes to forgiveness, it's recognising that it's a process. Like I say, you don't just flip a switch or tick a box, I've forgiven.
Yeah.
Sometimes sometimes your anger does surface.
Yeah.
And I think forgiveness is something you have to continuously work on. So it's keeping that dialogue open with God in prayer, not forgetting to continue asking for that forgiveness. And being kind to yourself if you slip. There are going to be times where you focus on the negativity of it, and not being so hard on yourself about that, right? You know, God understands that you are hurting in whatever way.
Yeah. Like, we are humans, we're not perfect, so yeah.
Exactly. And sometimes it comes up on you and you haven't noticed, and you realise you've had these internal arguments with yourself.
Yeah.
Which I always win an internal argument, which is great. You control the narrative, don't you, in your head?
Yeah.
But you realise that I've been doing that for the last few days, and now I feel rubbish. And it's almost like you've got to go through the process again. Not from the beginning, because you've already forgiven, but it's almost like you need to remind yourself, don't forget you have forgiven.
Yeah.
If you see what I mean. And it's also something I do alongside it, which isn't easy, is to pray for the person that you've forgiven. And I don't always want to do that. It is difficult. But I do try to pray for his salvation. Because like I said earlier, there is a freedom in it. And when you really, truly forgive someone, your need for revenge is replaced by peace. And really, we all want peace for everybody, don't we? And I suppose also when it comes to forgiveness, it's recognising that it's a very personal thing. It actually doesn't involve the other person, because the person that you're forgiving might not want or need your forgiveness. And I think it's important to think about that separately. So I would always get really kind of het up about it in terms of like there's no acknowledgement of what's happened. But actually I don't need that acknowledgement. If I'm forgiven, if I'm purely forgiven, then that's about me and my relationship with God, not about what someone else on earth wants from me.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Laura, so much. Yeah. Wow, a lot to think about, I think, yeah. Guys, thank you so much for listening to another episode. And thank you so much for the feedback so far. If you have any questions you want me to ask our guests, then feel free to send them on any social medias. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow us on everything so you don't miss another episode. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.